I started working at Memorial Hospital when I was 17 years old. Not as a doctor or a nurse. As a janitor in the Environmental Services Department. Night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., mopping floors and emptying trash cans while studying for my high school finals during breaks. My family thought it was temporary. A summer job to earn college money, maybe something I'd do part-time during my first year at community college. But I loved it. Not the mopping itself, though there's something meditative about repetitive work. I loved the hospital. The energy of it, the purpose, the way every single person from the surgeons to the cafeteria workers to the janitors played a role in saving lives. My sister Melissa was the golden child. She went to a 4-year university, got her business degree, landed a corporate job at a marketing firm. She wore designer clothes to work, had business cards with fancy titles, and posted LinkedIn updates about her professional journey. My parents framed her college diploma and hung it in the living room. My janitorial uniform never made it onto the wall. That was 15 years ago. I'm 32 now, and to my family I'm still just the janitor. They don't know that I haven't mopped a floor professionally in 8 years. They don't know that I went to night school and got my bachelor's in healthcare administration, then my master's, then my doctorate. They don't know that I worked my way up from environmental services to facilities management, to operations coordinator, to director of operations to chief operating officer. And they definitely don't know that 3 years ago at 29 years old, I became the CEO of Memorial Hospital System, which now includes 4 hospitals, 12 outpatient clinics, and over 3,000 employees. To them I'm still just Elena, the janitor. The one who couldn't cut it in college, who took the easy route, who settled for honest work, because she didn't have the drive or intelligence for anything better. I never corrected them. At first it was because I was too busy actually doing the work to worry about explaining it. Then it became a kind of experiment. How long would they keep making assumptions? How long before someone actually asked what I did instead of telling me what they thought I did? The answer apparently was 15 years and counting. The family reunion was at Uncle Robert's house, the big one in the suburbs with the pool and the professionally landscaped yard. Uncle Robert was a dentist, successful enough to retire at 55. He loved reminding everyone about his success, especially in contrast to those of us who, in his words, never quite reached our potential. I arrived after my shift at the hospital, an 8-hour day that included a board meeting, a conference call with investors about our expansion plans, and a site visit to our new cancer center. I was wearing jeans and a simple blouse, my hair in a ponytail, no makeup. I'd learned a long time ago that dressing up for family events just invited more questions I didn't feel like answering. Melissa was already there, of course, in a dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She was holding court on the patio, talking about her latest campaign for some tech startup. My parents were listening with rapt attention, nodding and asking follow-up questions. Elena. Mom spotted me and waved me over. We were just hearing about Melissa's promotion. She's leading an entire department now. That's great, I said, hugging my sister. Congratulations. Thanks, Melissa said, her smile tight. How's the hospital? Busy. It's always busy. Still mopping floors? Uncle Robert asked, walking over with a beer in hand. He said it loud enough that several cousins turned to look. Your sister's a real professional now. Running teams, making 6 figures. When are you going to move up? I took a sip of my water. I'm comfortable where I am. That's the problem with your generation, Uncle Robert continued, settling into lecture mode. No ambition. You find something easy and you just coast. Look at Melissa, she kept pushing, kept climbing, and now look where she is. Where she is, was senior marketing director at a mid-size firm, managing a team of 8 people. It was a good job. Solid career. Nothing to be ashamed of. But Uncle Robert talked about it like she'd cured cancer. Janitorial work is important, Mom said, and I could hear the pity in her voice. Hospitals need clean floors. It's honest work, I guess. It is honest work, I agreed. Someone has to do it. Dad squeezed my shoulder. We're proud of you, sweetheart. You've always been a hard worker, even if you didn't go the traditional route. The traditional route. Code for, even if you're not as successful as your sister. Melissa shifted uncomfortably. She was never as cruel as Uncle Robert, never as openly condescending, but she never defended me either. She just let them talk, let them compare us, let them hold her up as the example of what I should have been. I heard janitors can make decent money, my cousin David offered, trying to be helpful. Union benefits and everything. Sure, if you consider 30,000 a year decent, Uncle Robert scoffed. But at Elena's age she should be thinking about real career growth. Management at least. You're what, 32? Still doing manual labor. I'm 32, I confirmed. And still mopping? Elena, sweetheart, there's no shame in it, but don't you want more? Don't you want what Melissa has? Respect, status, a real salary. I could have told them then. Could have explained that my real salary was $850,000 a year, not including bonuses. Could have mentioned that I oversaw a budget of $600 million and made decisions that affected thousands of patients and employees. Could have pointed out that while Melissa's LinkedIn profile was impressive, mine included speaking engagements at national healthcare conferences and a profile in Modern Healthcare magazine's list of top young executives. But I didn't. I just smiled and said, I'm happy with my work. That's good, Mom said in that tone that meant she didn't believe me. As long as you're happy, that's what matters. The afternoon wore on. More relatives arrived. More conversations about careers and success and achievements. Melissa showed everyone pictures from her company retreat in Cabo. Uncle Robert talked about his investment portfolio. My cousin Sarah announced her acceptance to law school. Me. I stood in the corner holding a plate of potato salad, being the family's cautionary tale. The one who could have been something but chose the easy path. The one who settled. The one who cleaned up other people's messes instead of making something of herself. Around 4 p.m. my phone buzzed. A text from my executive assistant. Robert Chin from billing needs to speak with you urgently. Says it can't wait until Monday. I stepped away from the party, walking toward the side yard where it was quieter, and called Robert back. Elena, I'm so sorry to bother you on a Saturday, Robert said, but we have a sensitive situation. You know the Martinez family debt we've been tracking. My stomach dropped. Martinez was my mother's maiden name. My family's name. What about it? It's hit $40,000. Your Uncle Robert Martinez had that emergency surgery 6 months ago, remember? No insurance. Your mother's been getting treatment for her diabetes complications. Your father's cardiac workup. They've been making minimum payments, but they're 3 months behind now, and corporate is pushing us to send it to collections. I closed my eyes. I'd known my parents were struggling with medical bills. I'd known Uncle Robert had money problems despite his big house and bigger talk. But $40,000? And they'd said nothing to me? Of course they'd said nothing. I was just the janitor. What could I possibly do to help? Don't send it to collections yet, I said. Let me handle this. Handle it how? Elena, I know they're your family, but corporate is very clear about the 90-day policy. Robert, I'm the CEO. I think I know what corporate policy is, considering I helped write it. Don't send it to collections. I'll deal with it Monday morning. Oh, right. Sorry, It's fine. Thanks for calling me. Have a good weekend. I stood there for a moment, phone in hand, trying to process this. $40,000 in medical debt. My family, the same family currently inside judging my career choices and pitying my lack of success, owed $40,000 to the hospital system I ran. The hospital system where they thought I mopped floors. I could have walked back inside and told them right then. Could have explained everything, cleared up 15 years of misconceptions in one conversation. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was pettiness. Maybe it was just exhaustion at being looked down on for so long. Or maybe I wanted to see what would happen if they found out another way. I went back to the party. Melissa was showing everyone her new designer handbag. Uncle Robert was holding forth about the importance of financial planning. Mom was talking about how worried she was about making ends meet, while standing next to a dessert table that probably cost $300. Everything okay? Dad asked when I returned. You were on the phone for a while. Just work stuff, I said. On a Saturday? They really work you hard, don't they? You should talk to your supervisor about work-life balance. I'll do that, I said. The party continued. More food, more conversation, more casual dismissals of my life choices. Around 6 p.m., just as people were starting to think about heading home, a car pulled up in front of Uncle Robert's house. BMW. Professional, clean, expensive. Robert Chin, my billing director, got out. He was in slacks and a button-down, looking distinctly uncomfortable. I'd texted him 20 minutes ago asking him to come by. He'd been confused but agreed. Robert was 62, had worked in hospital billing for 40 years, and was one of the most professional people I'd ever worked with. He was also completely loyal and, more importantly, loved a good dramatic reveal. I'd given him very specific instructions on the phone. I watched through the window as he walked up the driveway. Uncle Robert answered the door, probably ready to tell this stranger he had the wrong house. I couldn't hear the conversation from inside, but I saw Robert Chin show him his hospital ID badge. Saw Uncle Robert's face change from annoyed to concerned. Then they both looked toward the backyard where the party was. This was it. I stayed where I was, near the dessert table, as Uncle Robert led Robert Chin through the house and out to the patio. The conversation noise dropped as people noticed the official-looking stranger in their midst. "Sorry to interrupt," Robert Chin said, scanning the crowd until his eyes landed on me. "But I need to speak with CEO Martinez. It's urgent hospital business." The silence was immediate and absolute. CEO Martinez. Every head turned toward me. My mother's mouth opened slightly. Melissa's designer handbag slipped from her fingers. Uncle Robert, the uncle who'd spent all afternoon lecturing me about ambition, looked like someone had just told him the sky was actually green. "I'm right here, Robert," I said calmly, walking over. "I thought I told you I'd handle this Monday morning." "I know, and I apologize," Robert Chin said, playing his role perfectly. "But corporate is demanding an answer today. About the Martinez family medical debt. We've reached $40,000 and they want to know if we're proceeding with collections or if you're planning to intervene." You could have heard a pin drop. Hell, you could have heard a thought drop. 40,000? Mom whispered. "How do they know about Martinez family debt?" Uncle Robert's voice cracked. "What Martinez family debt?" Robert Chin looked genuinely confused now. He didn't know these were my relatives, just that I'd asked him to come discuss the case in person. The account under Robert Martinez, Gloria Martinez and Henry Martinez. Outstanding balance of $40,372. The CEO has the authority to restructure the payment plan or write off portions as charity care, but corporate needs a decision before Monday. "CEO." Melissa finally found her voice. "Did you say CEO?" Robert Chin looked at me, then at the crowd, then back at me. Understanding dawned on his face. His eyes widened slightly and I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. He was trying not to smile. "You didn't tell them," he said quietly. "It never came up," I replied. "Tell us what?" Dad demanded. "Elena, what is he talking about?" I turned to face my family. 37 relatives, all staring at me like I'd just announced I was secretly royalty. Which, in a way, I had. "Robert, this is my family," I said. "Uncle Robert, Mom, Dad. This is Robert Chin, the billing director at Memorial Hospital System. He reports to me." "Reports to you?" Uncle Robert repeated. "But you're a janitor." "I was a janitor. 15 years ago. I worked in environmental services from 17 to 19 while I put myself through community college. Then I transferred to state school, got my bachelor's in healthcare administration while working in facilities management. Got my master's while working as operations coordinator. Got my doctorate while serving as director of operations. 3 years ago, the board appointed me CEO of the hospital system." More silence. Someone's paper plate hit the ground. "You're the CEO," Mom said faintly. "Of the hospital." "Of the hospital system," I corrected. 4 hospitals, 12 outpatient clinics, 3,000 employees, $600 million annual budget. I've been CEO for 3 years. CEO for 2 years before that. Director of Operations for 3 years before that. I've worked at Memorial for 15 years, and I haven't mopped a floor professionally in 8. Melissa sat down heavily on a patio chair. "But you never said anything. You always just said you worked at the hospital." "I do work at the hospital. I run it. But every time I came to family events, you all assumed I was still in environmental services and I never corrected you. I wanted to see how long it would take before someone actually asked me what I did instead of telling me what they thought I did." 15 years, Dad said quietly. "You let us think." "I let you think exactly what you wanted to think," I said. "Every family dinner, every holiday, every reunion. Still mopping floors, Elena. When are you going to get a real job, Elena? Your sister's a real professional, Elena. I told you I worked at the hospital. You decided what that meant without ever asking for details. Uncle Robert had gone pale. The medical debt. You said $40,000. Robert Chin, bless him, picked up the thread smoothly. Sir. Your emergency appendectomy surgery 6 months ago, plus the complications that required 3 additional days in ICU. No insurance. The total came to $31,900. Combined with Gloria Martinez's diabetes treatment and Henry Martinez's cardiac workup, the family account is at $40,372. We've been making payments, Mom said weakly. We've been trying. You've made 3 minimum payments of $500 each, then missed the last 3 months, Robert Chin said, checking his tablet. Which triggers our collections policy. However, CEO Martinez has the discretionary authority to restructure payment plans or designate portions of the debt as charity care for families in financial hardship. You knew about this? Dad asked me. You knew we were in debt to your hospital? I found out this afternoon when Robert called me. I had no idea you were struggling with medical bills. But then again, you never told me. Probably because you thought I was just a janitor, and what could a janitor possibly do to help? Uncle Robert was shaking his head slowly. This isn't real. You can't be. You're 32 years old. CEOs aren't 32. Some are. I earned my position through 15 years of work, starting from the bottom and learning every aspect of hospital operations. I know how environmental services works because I worked in environmental services. I know how facilities management works because I managed facilities. I know how operations work because I ran operations. And yes, I know how executive leadership works because I've been doing it for 5 years. 5 years? Melissa said. You've been in hospital administration for 5 years? 5 years in executive leadership. 10 years in hospital administration overall. I have a doctorate in healthcare management from Johns Hopkins. Finished it last year through their executive program. I've published 3 papers on operational efficiency in hospital systems. I spoke at the National Healthcare Leadership Conference in Chicago last month. And yes, I'm the CEO and I have been for 3 years. The silence stretched out. I could see them trying to reconcile the person they thought they knew with the reality I just presented. The janitor who was actually the boss. The failure who was actually more successful than any of them. The cautionary tale who was actually the success story. Robert Chin cleared his throat delicately. CEO Martinez, I do need an answer about the debt situation. Should I proceed with collections on Monday, or would you like to restructure? I looked at my family. My mother who'd pitied me for choosing honest work. My father who'd been proud of me even though I didn't go the traditional route. My uncle who'd spent all afternoon lecturing me about ambition and drive. My sister who'd never once defended me when they compared us. I could forgive the debt entirely. I had the authority. I could write it off as charity care, make it disappear with a signature. That would be the generous thing to do, the family thing to do. But they'd spent 15 years assuming I was beneath them. 15 years of condescension and pity and lectures about reaching my potential. 15 years of never once asking what I actually did, what I'd actually achieved. Restructure it, I said. Payment plan of $500 a month for the next 80 months. 0 interest. That's well within our charity care guidelines for families experiencing financial hardship. 80 months. Uncle Robert said. That's almost 7 years. That's extremely generous, Robert Chin said firmly. Standard collections would demand full payment within 90 days or legal action. CEO Martinez is offering you an interest-free payment plan that will keep this off your credit reports and out of the legal system. Most families would be grateful for that option. I am grateful, Mom said quickly. Elena, sweetheart, thank you. We had no idea you could, that you were. That I was in a position to help? I finished. No, you didn't. Biz, you never asked. You never wondered. You just assumed. Melissa stood up. This isn't fair. You let us think. I let you think what you wanted to think. I never lied, Melissa. Not once. Every time someone asked what I did, I said I worked at the hospital. That was true. You're the one who decided that meant I was just a janitor. All of you did. But why? Dad asked, and he sounded genuinely hurt. Why didn't you tell us? Why let us think you were struggling when you were so successful? I considered my answer carefully. Because I wanted to see if any of you would look past your assumptions. I wanted to see if anyone would ask about my life instead of telling me how disappointed they were in my choices. I wanted to know if your love and respect was conditional on how impressive my job title sounded. That's not fair, Mom said, tears in her eyes. We've always loved you. But you didn't respect me. Not as much as you respected Melissa. Not as much as you respected Uncle Robert. Not as much as you respected anyone with a job title you understood and approved of. And I wanted to see if that would ever change. Did it? Melissa asked quietly. I looked at her. My sister who'd never been cruel but never been kind either. Who'd accepted the role of golden child and never questioned why I had to be the cautionary tale. I don't know yet, I said honestly. That depends on what happens next. Robert Chin shifted his weight. I should get going. CO Martinez, I'll send you the restructured payment plan documents to review and sign Monday morning. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, you'll receive information about your new payment schedule in the mail within 5 business days. He nodded to the group. Enjoy the rest of your evening. He left. The party had effectively ended. People were gathering their things, making awkward excuses, avoiding eye contact. Nobody seemed to know what to say. How do you process finding out the family member you've been pitying for 15 years is actually more successful than you'll ever be? Uncle Robert approached me as I was getting ready to leave. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. I owe you an apology, he said quietly. For today. For all the other days. For every time I made you feel small. You do, I agreed. I'm sorry. Truly. I was wrong about you. About everything. You were wrong about what work has value, I said. You decided that some jobs were worthy of respect and others weren't. But you know what? Even if I was still a janitor, even if I'd stayed in environmental services my whole career, I'd still deserve respect. That work matters. Those workers matter. You just couldn't see that. He nodded slowly. You're right. And I'm sorry. My parents waited by my car. Mom had been crying. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last hour. We're so proud of you, Mom said. We always have been, You just wanted me to be proud of myself, I finished. I know. But Mom, I've always been proud of my work. All of it. From mopping floors to running the hospital system. You're the ones who decided one was more valuable than the other. We should have asked, Dad said. We should have paid attention, should have. Should have trusted that I knew what I was doing with my life, I said. Should have respected my choices even when you didn't understand them. Can you forgive us? Mom asked. Eventually, I said. But it's going to take time. You spent 15 years making assumptions about my life without ever really seeing me. That doesn't go away with one conversation. Melissa caught me before I got in my car. I'm sorry too, she said. I should have defended you. All those times they compared us, all those times Uncle Robert lectured you, I should have said something. Yes, you should have. I was scared, she admitted. Scared that if I wasn't the successful one, I'd become the disappointment instead. It was easier to let them think I was better than you than risk them realizing I was just average. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in years. She looked tired. The designer dress and expensive handbag suddenly seemed like armor instead of achievements. You're not average, I said. You're good at what you do. You just don't need to be better than me to prove it. I know that now. Do you? He thought about it. I'm starting to. I drove home to my condo. A nice 3-bedroom with a view of the city skyline. I could afford more, could afford much more, but I'd never seen the point. The money went back into the hospital system, into better equipment and higher staff wages and expanded patient services. I paid myself a good salary but not an excessive one. That night I got texts from various family members. Apologies, congratulations, questions about how I'd hidden such a big secret for so long. I answered some and ignored others. This wasn't about making them feel better about their assumptions. This was about them finally seeing me clearly. Monday morning I was in my office at 6 a.m. Corner office on the top floor, windows overlooking the hospital complex I'd helped build. Robert Chin knocked at 6:30 with the payment plan documents for my family's debt. That was quite the reveal, he said, setting the papers on my desk. I had no idea those were your relatives. Neither did they, apparently. For what it's worth, I think you handled it perfectly. They needed that wake-up call. I signed the documents, making the payment plan official. They needed a lot more than a wake-up call, but it's a start. The rest of the day was typical for a Monday. Budget meeting at 8 a.m., department head check-ins until noon, site visit to our newest clinic in the afternoon, donor meeting at 4 p.m. I reviewed staffing reports, approved equipment purchases, discussed expansion plans with the board chair. Regular CEO work. At 6 p.m. as I was getting ready to leave, my phone rang. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, her voice careful. "I was wondering if you'd like to come for dinner this week. Just us, your father, Melissa, and me. No lectures, no comparisons. Just dinner." "Why?" I asked. "Because we'd like to get to know you. The real you. Not the version we made up in our heads." I thought about it. 15 years of assumptions couldn't be undone in one dinner. But it was a start. "Thursday," I said. "I'll come Thursday. But Mom, if anyone mentions mopping floors or asks when I'm going to get a real job, I'm walking out." "No mopping floor talk," she promised. "I swear." Thursday came. I went to dinner at my parents' house. It was awkward at first. They didn't know what to say to me now that they knew the truth. Melissa kept staring at me like I was a stranger. Dad asked careful questions about my work that made it clear he'd spent the last 3 days Googling hospital CEO responsibilities. But slowly, carefully, we started having a real conversation. Not about job titles or success metrics or career achievements. Just about life. About what I'd learned working my way up through every department. About the challenges of running a hospital system during a pandemic. About my hopes for expanding mental health services and my frustration with insurance companies. And they listened. Really listened. Not to judge or compare or offer unsolicited advice. Just to understand. It wasn't perfect. We had a long way to go. 15 years of assumptions don't disappear overnight. But it was a beginning. As I left that night, Melissa walked me to my car. "I looked up your speaking engagement," she said. "The one in Chicago. I watched the video online. And you were brilliant. The way you talked about operational efficiency and patient outcomes. I didn't understand half of it, but I could tell everyone in that room respected you. Really respected you. Thank you. I'm sorry I never saw it before. I'm sorry I never asked." "I know. But Melissa, you need to understand something. I don't need you to think I'm brilliant or impressive or successful. I need you to think I'm worthy of respect regardless of what my job title is. Even if I was still mopping floors, I'd deserve respect. Can you understand that?" She nodded slowly. "I'm trying to. That's all I ask. Keep trying." I drove home, exhausted but oddly hopeful. The relationship with my family would never be what it could have been if they'd paid attention from the start. But maybe it could become something better. Something built on actual understanding instead of assumptions. The next morning, I was back in my office at 6 a.m. Back to budget reviews and staffing decisions and expansion plans. Back to running a hospital system that served over 200,000 patients a year. Back to work that mattered, that saved lives, that made a difference. And if anyone asked what I did for a living, I'd tell them the truth. I worked at the hospital. Just like I always had.